The paralysis effect from the bloodsucker was slowly starting to wear off, and as it did, Ian lifted himself off the ground to have a look at just what was going on. In the center of the arena was lit up by the small glowstone where Vorden was standing. As the bloodsucker lifted himself off the ground, he pulled the metal object that had been lodged into his shoulder and dropped it onto the floor. Rack! Instead of going in straight for an attack and charging in, though, the bloodsucker dug its claw into the wall and started to climb upwards. "How are we meant to see him now?" said Vorden. "It's too dark and the beast can attack from anywhere." He lifted his hands and started to crumble up each of the chairs into several metal spikes, all looming above his head. The other spears that were targeted had managed to penetrate him, going through his body and sticking him to the ceiling of the dome. However, the hole marks that could be seen in his body quickly healed up. "This thing, why isn't it dead yet?" Vorden said. Its eyes were slowly adjusting to the light that had surrounded Vorden, and now it could see the spikes as it left his side. The bloodsucker continued to move forward, avoiding each and every spike thrown at it. Then, when it was close enough, it swung its claw out. As it took a step forward, though, it felt something sharp pierce into its foot. As the beast looked down, it was another metal spike. It looked in the distance and noticed that Ian had managed to recover. Suddenly, though, tears started to fall from the little one's face. Now that the beast was close enough, the light from the stone shone and reviled the face and clothes of the beast. The beast in front of him was wearing the same uniform, and although it didn't look exactly like Quinn, it had similar qualities in its face. He didn't know what happened to make Quinn turn into a creature like this, but he could feel that the beast and Quinn was the same person. "What are you doing?" Ian shouted. "Kill it!" Ian then pulled out his trusty dagger, ready to attack. But when he looked in front of him, the beast had vanished from his view. The next second he was staring up at the ceiling, with his back on the floor. Then when he looked down at his body, his legs were now completely detached from himself, blood pouring from them. The bloodsucker then dragged the top half of Ian's body away into the hallway out of the arena, afraid that the other person might disturb its meal. The students had just been informed that the portal expedition that was meant to be going on today would be cancelled. Layla had been planning to confront Peter on the situation, especially since he had been acting so strangely, but before she could even get to him, he had already run away. "Come on, Aaron, let's go find out what he's hiding," Layla said. But as she took a few steps forward, she noticed that Aaron wasn't following her. "I have no need to get involved in your affairs," Aaron replied. "You and Vorden are clearly the strongest in the class, and if you want to outperform the others from the other classes, you're going to have to team up with each other." After hearing Layla's last words, her eyes suddenly lit up. "Let's go find that rat." As they continued to search for Peter, they still couldn't find him, but they did find a group of people who might have known where he was. It was Earl and his group of 5 other boys. "Haven't I seen them hang around with Peter a few times at breakfast?" The group were inside one of the training centers. If Layla was on her own, she would have never approached the group, but she had Aaron by her side. "We're not here looking for trouble, just wondering if you knew where Peter was," she said, putting on a fake smile. The group looked at each other and started to laugh. "Peter?" Earl said. "I wouldn't be surprised if that kid tried running out of the city by now. Anyway, buzz off, you two. We're not saying a single thing. If you want to find Peter, then go find him yourself." Aaron then started to walk up to the group of 5. "I don't want to waste any more time." Before the other students could even react, she had already thrown the ice spear, hitting Earl on his shoulder and pinning him against one of the drums that were used to show a student's power. As Earl's body landed on the drum, the number started to rise until it eventually stopped at 20. The group watching this knew she was strong, but the machine had only confirmed their fears. However, she didn't care. She then placed both of her hands on the ground, and a trail of ice started to appear, traveling across the floor, eventually reaching the group's legs and freezing them all in place. "Now, which one of you is going to tell me what I want to know first?" Aaron said. "Wait, I'll tell you everything. I don't know where Peter is. He was meant to meet us here a while ago, but he never showed up." "Peter, we're not sure exactly what happened, but we heard he pushed Vorden into a portal. That's all we know. We don't know why Quinn is missing as well." Of course, Earl was the one who was behind everything. He and his group had given Peter the instructions to push Vorden into the portal. When they had heard the news that 2 students were missing and confirmed Vorden was one of them, they thought Peter had done what he asked. Unknown to them, Peter hadn't actually pushed Vorden, but Quinn instead. "The ice will melt in a couple of hours, or maybe someone in the room with an ability can help you. That's your punishment for making me wait, instead of telling this girl what she wanted straight away." As Aaron walked off, exiting out of the training center, Layla quickly followed behind her. Thanks for that. That wasn't for you. I just hate it when guys think they're better than us. Better show people like that their place. Just then, though, as the two of them were about to exit through the doors, the door opened inward and a familiar face was seen. It was Peter. Immediately seeing Layla standing there, Peter went running off, but Erin had reached out and grabbed him by the collar, pulling him back. She then slammed him up against the wall. Before he could even think about running away again, she placed her hands on his and started to freeze him. Peter, tell us the truth. Did you really push Vorden into the portal? She asked. What are you going to do? Hit me? Peter replied. Because trust me, I have already had my fair share of pain. Whatever you plan to do to me, go ahead. Erin then started to form a small little needle-shaped ice pick in her hand. Really, I'm sure there are a few places I could stick this in which would leave you wishing you'd kill yourself. Peter, I thought they were your friends. You know, every day Quinn would ask about how you were to me. Why didn't you just tell him, or even just tell us what was happening? You don't know what would happen if I told you guys. You go beat them up, then what? They would just come back for revenge. But do you think they would go after you, Erin or Vorden? No, of course not. They would go after me. Peter then started to break down into tears. I didn't want to do it. I didn't have a choice. Layla had clenched her fist and was ready to punch Peter in the face. Seeing Peter's tearful face, she dropped her hand down to her side. You're not even worth hitting, Peter. You disgust me. She then turned and walked off and had one last word. You always have a choice. Inside one of the meeting rooms located in the first-year building, a meeting had been called. Currently sitting at the head of the table was Nathan, and by his side was Faye, who had been in charge of the investigation of the missing 2 students. As they waited, several other teachers started to enter the room. Dell, who was Vorden and Quinn's homeroom teacher, Leo, who was the beast weapons teacher, and finally Haley, the school's doctor. Faye, would you please inform the others of why they have been called here today? Nathan asked. Faye then stood up with a report held in her hand. As you have been made aware, 2 of our students have gone missing, and due to that, we have had to delay the first year's outing. However, if this was a simple missing persons case, we would not have called you all out here today. Faye then pressed a button on her controller, and a hologram appeared, revealing a certain planet, and around it there were 2 moons. The missing students seem to have entered into a portal, but not just any portal, a red portal. How or why we do not know, but one of the students was Vorden Blade, an original from a powerful family. The mission is not to bring him back alive, but to at least bring his body back. That way the family can say their goodbyes, and it should calm down their anger. What about the other student? Leo asked. The other student is not a priority. He goes by the name of Quinn Talon, a weak level 1 with no family, or an orphan. There is no need to worry about him. Do you know where the portal leads to? Haley asked. As you can see in the diagram, the red portal leads to an abandoned planet named Pyoletic. It was one of the very first planets the human race had ever created a shelter on. It was safe for the most part, but as the place was filled with weak beasts. However, that was until a year had passed and nightfall had come. Beasts stronger than we had ever seen before came and attacked the shelter. We had no choice but to abandon the place, Faye explained. This is why we have called you 4, Nathan said as he stood up. The 4 of you will head out through the red portal immediately. Don't worry, our latest reports say that the beasts that attacked the shelter have long since moved on. The place is mostly filled with Rataclaw scum and the odd intermediate beast here and there. Dell slammed his fist onto the table. Why should we risk our lives for a couple of students who may have just jumped into the portal themselves? Would you like to be the one to go to the Blade family and explain to them why their son has died and gone missing? How, even though we insisted on these watches to keep track of where they are, we still weren't able to keep an eye on them? Nathan said. This is an order, not a request. Meanwhile, Layla was still worrying over Quinn. Don't worry too much, Erin said. If Vorden is with him, he will protect his friend. But she was more worried that Vorden might be used as an emergency ration during the trip, more than anything. As they were walking through the hallway, they noticed that a group of students were gossiping, and as they walked past, they heard Vorden's name being mentioned. What did you say? Layla asked. Would you mind repeating that? We were just talking about the missing students. Dumbo here has the ability of super hearing, and had heard in the meeting saying that Vorden was stuck on a red portal planet. Do you remember anything else? The name of the planet, if another student went with them? Erin said. Yeah, they said the planet's name was Pyoletic, and they said something about Quinn being there as well. Layla then got out of Dumbo's face and immediately started rushing towards her room. I'm sorry, Erin, I've got to run somewhere. Thanks for all the help. Layla had rushed off towards her dorm room as quickly as she could after hearing about what planet they were on. As she entered the room, she locked the door behind her and placed a chair on the handle. Her roommate luckily wasn't in at the moment. She then bent down under her bed and pulled out a small little box. As she opened the box, a circular black sphere-shaped ball was inside. She then tapped the top of the sphere, and a clicking sound was heard. A white ring started to light up and went around in circles for a few seconds before it finally completely lit up.
Agent 83, what seems to be the problem?
A voice said from the ball.
Is it to do with the mission?
I have found someone who will be of great help in our cause. However, it appears he is stuck somewhere. Would you be able to check if there are any agents on a planet named Pyoletic? Layla asked.
Give me a few moments. I'm afraid all our agents have left that planet a while ago. Is there anything else I can help you with?
No, that is it, thank you, Layla said.
Then may I wish you luck in your mission. May Pure be with you.
May Pure be with you, Layla replied.
Was that really Quinn? Vorden asked. What happened to him? He looked so ugly, Rayton said. You do know he will be like that for a while now, Rayton said. Vorden then stopped walking forward as he had reached the torn-apart body on the floor in the stands. All that was left of Ian was his 2 legs that had been torn from the waist down. Hey, wait! Check the man's trousers. He had that advanced tier beast crystal, don't you remember? Now that he's dead, we may as well take it. Although Vorden didn't like disrespecting the dead and didn't often agree with Rayton, in this case it made sense to not let such a precious thing go to waste. After searching Ian's trousers, though, there was no such luck, and no crystal was found. Do you really think it's a good idea to follow that thing? Rayton asked. I need to see if that thing was really Quinn. You know, if I don't, the little one will punish us. Vorden then looked around and held out his hand, attracting one of the chairs from the stands, and held it in his hands. He held it in front of him like a shield as he walked forward. The bloodsucker continued to drag Ian's body across the floor, looking for somewhere safe to eat its meal. It turned and turned several corridors until it finally arrived at what looked like resting quarters. 35 of 100, 42 of 100. As the beast continued to suck Ian's blood, a notification screen appeared slowly, rising up until eventually the number had hit 100. 100 of 100. Sufficient blood has been consumed. Transformation will now end. Your mind is starting to stabilize. Just then, shooting pain once again started to enter Quinn's body, only this time it was starting to revert back to normal. His claw-like hands began to shrink down and go back to shape to what they once were. His incredibly tight skin softened around his body and face. His ears were no longer pointed, and his teeth too returned to normal, and finally, the white in his eyes could be seen once again. Then images started to flash into his head. Everything that he had done while he was the bloodsucker. Even though he had no control, he felt like he was there every step of the way. Vorden, what's he doing here? Then more images started to flash into his head, and finally, he remembered slicing a man in half. That was me! First human killed. High-level user detected. Reward, instant level up. Congratulations, you are now level 10. Evolution process has begun. Evolution process? Just then, Quinn's heart started pounding harder than before. His veins all around his body started to show as the blood rushed through. Quinn could feel every little part of his body, but it wasn't a nice feeling. It felt like his blood was made of spikes as it went through and around his body. He could feel it tearing everything apart. Just then, a footstep was heard entering the room. Vorden had arrived. Quinn? Get away! Quinn groaned out as the pain continued to shoot through his whole body. Maybe I can help. I said get away. Quinn's voice sounded deep and dark as he lifted his head. Vorden could see his eyes were now glowing red. Hey, Vorden, I think you better listen to the kid. He could be turning into that thing again, Rayton said. But it was too late. Vorden had taken one step too many and was now within striking distance. Quinn lashed out, flinging his arm at Vorden. However, he was able to lift his metal chair up in time, blocking the attack, but it didn't do too much. The metal chair was immediately ripped by Quinn's hands, and the attack managed to craze Vorden's chest, flinging him backwards. Blood! Quinn screamed. Give me blood! What did I tell you? That chair was useless, Rayton complained. Quick, seal the door shut. Vorden no longer hesitated, and using his abilities, he pulled the broken door back in place and using all his powers, quickly sealed it up. Quinn was no longer chasing after Vorden, but instead knelt on the floor, crying in pain. Vorden stayed there with his hands held up, holding the door in place. Fear that whatever was inside or whatever was happening to Quinn would come out again and attack him. The screams continued for a good 15 minutes, until they eventually died down and stopped. "Quinn?" Vorden called out softly, hoping not to startle him. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah," Quinn replied. "Just give me a few moments. I'll let you know when it's okay." "Congratulations, evolution was successful. You are now a vampire. Level 10. Race, vampire. 0 of 100 EXP. HP 60 of 60. Strength, 15. Agility, 15. Stamina, 15. Charm, 5. Blood family bonus, 0. Just looking at his status screen alone, so much had changed. Quinn had yet to put his extra stat point, but it seemed like 2 more options were added to the stats screen. The first one being the charm stat, and the second being a blood family bonus. Although with no explanation, Quinn was clueless to what these 2 things did. Now that he was a vampire instead of a halfling, what happened when he stepped into the sun? Skill, blood ritual unlocked. 0 of 2 members. New skill, daze. This skill has no cost and can be used on the opponent to stun them between 0.2 seconds and 0.5 seconds at a time. Must have direct eye contact with the opponent. The skill has a chance of failing, depending on the strength of the enemy and on the user's charm points. The more the skill is used on an opponent, the higher chance they have of resisting. But the messages didn't stop there. Shop has been unlocked. New tutorials have been unlocked. System level 2 will now activate. "Congrats," the man said. "You have now officially joined the family. I thought maybe a simple human wouldn't be able to make it this far, but it looks like my little experiment was a success. Now that the system has been upgraded to level 2, I had a good friend of mine install an AI system with my voice. It's amazing, right? Now you'll never feel alone again, and if you ever have a question about the system, just ask." "What?" Quinn thought. "Why wasn't the system like this from the beginning?" Now you're probably thinking, why didn't I design it this way from the very beginning? The truth is, you needed to be able to get this far on your own. I'm sorry, but now that you are a vampire, others will come looking for you. They have already blended into society, so it's almost impossible to tell who is one and who isn't. If you want to live a life of freedom as I did, then get stronger. Create a force of your own and fight back. Good luck, my friend. I'm really not human anymore, am I? Before Quinn was to check out all the new things the system had revealed, there was one more problem he needed to face, and it was on the other side of the door. It was time to confront Vorden. Around 10 minutes had passed since Vorden had last heard Quinn say anything. Then movement from the other side of the door was heard, as Quinn started to lift himself up from the ground. "Vorden, are you still there?" Quinn asked. "Yeah, I'm here. You all right now?" "Yeah, I'm okay. You probably want to know what just happened, don't you?" "Well, I'd be lying if I said no." Quinn then took a deep breath as he prepared to tell Vorden the whole tale. He slowly started at the beginning, about how he had obtained a book, all up to the point where he had arrived in the portal world, eventually turning into the bloodsucker. There were some details he decided to leave out, though. There was silence between the two for a few moments as Quinn finished the story. "You know, I knew you were different from the moment I met you," said Vorden. "What do you mean?" Quinn asked. "Do you know how abilities work? Every person has a number of mutant cells inside their body that they can activate. My ability allows me to replicate these cells from one person into my own body. But when I shook your hand, I felt the different cells in your body, Quinn. Just for whatever reason, I couldn't replicate them. It was the first time something like that had ever happened." "Are you scared of me, Vorden?" "Scared, Quinn? Everyone has their own secrets that they don't want others to know, some more so than others. It's understandable why you hid it." Vorden then turned around and moved the metal door out and into the corridor. To his surprise, Quinn looked almost like a completely different person. He had a whole new energy surrounding him. Quinn had grown a few inches in height. His skin looked super smooth and had gone slightly pale, while his face looked a little more masculine. "Now this might be a tough one to explain," Vorden said. They continued to walk around and ended back in the arena where the two of them fought. Based on Ian's information, the portal was most likely to be in this building. After searching around for a while and no success, the two of them sat down on the arena floor. Quinn asked why Vorden was even here in the first place, and gave the simple reply of, "I came after you." The two of them started to laugh and joke about a few things as time passed by. "It's a shame you can't use your abilities in school. If it was a normal ability, my family could offer you protection. The military wouldn't try hurting you." Although Quinn could try to pass off the vampire abilities as something normal, there was the problem that there was no skill like it.
On the video the system had shown, the blonde man stated others would now be looking for him. Were others referring to other vampires? If so, he needed to keep this a secret even more so than before. From the sound of the video, they didn't sound like they would be welcoming to him. Then something clicked in his head. There was something he could learn that wasn't part of his vampire skills. The level 6 ability book, the Shadow Book. While Vorden continued to search the arena for some type of secret exit, Quinn was pretending to look for one as well while walking around. Would you like to take out the level 6 Shadow ability book? This time, rather than a monotone robotic voice the system usually played in his head, it was the annoying, energetic blonde man's voice. Inspect. Level 6 Shadow Book can only be learnt by those that have been blooded. Blooded? Was that another name for vampires, perhaps? It started to make Quinn ask more questions about the book. Why did the military keep such a high-level book locked away? He had never heard of someone possessing a shadow ability before. Just then, the annoying voice was heard again. So it looks like you want to learn more about the book, huh? Please? Quinn said while gritting his teeth. Your guess is correct. Blooded refers to those that have been blessed or cursed, whichever way you want to look at it, with vampire blood. It doesn't matter if they're a halfling, a vampire lord, or even a ghoul. As long as they possess some of the vampire's blood, they are able to learn these abilities. Do you know why the book was here? I have no clue. Is this the only ability book vampires can learn? And can vampires learn more than one ability? Just like humans, vampires are only able to learn one ability. Quinn had asked the AI more questions, hoping to get an answer it had no clue and would just reply back with sarcastic answers. With that being said, there was one person in the room that was knowledgeable about these things, and he might just know about the shadow ability. Vorden, have you ever heard of an ability that uses shadows? Shadows? Honestly, my gut instinct would be no, or at least not the world anyway. But you were honest with me, so it's time I'll be honest with you, said Vorden. The two of them then sat down a few chairs apart in the stadium. Remember when I said earlier how I kept an eye on you because I couldn't copy your ability? Well, you're not the first one, or not the first one in our family, said Vorden. As you know, I'm an original, so our powers have been passed down from generation to generation for hundreds of years. In my great-grandfather's journal, there was a time he said he had come across another user with an ability. Now back then this was rare. The whole world still didn't know humans had super capabilities. But each time we would come across one, my family would log it, especially since our ability relied on others. So is that why you were so interested in me? When you say it like that, it sounds a little strange. I assure you, I don't think of you in that way, Vorden said awkwardly, but then his face went serious. Now that I told you, tell me, how would something the public not know about would you know about? At the moment, Quinn lifted the ability book in his hand. Whoa, you actually found it. Well, what are you waiting for? Let's learn it now. We have all the time in the world and we're stuck here doing nothing. Well, I really did want to learn it, but the problem is if I did, others would be after me, just like they would for the vampire ability. Vorden started to think long and hard if there was anything he could do to help him. Then his master plan came to him. I think we can use the situation we're in to your advantage, said Vorden. The school must know by now that we have been sent to another planet. You can just say you found the book here, that you learnt it for your survival. They'll know you're level 1 trash. Vorden paused for a moment after saying those words. I mean, they all think you're just a level 1, right? I'll say while we were in the portal world, I protected you, and as payment, after learning the skill, you decided to hand the book over to me. That way the people will no longer be bugging you for it, but my family instead. Are you sure your family will be okay with that? For a split second, Quinn thought he had seen Vorden's face drop, but then he blinked and looked again. It was completely normal. Now, what I'm about to tell you, they would probably teach you at the school later on anyway. Vorden then started to use the magnetism ability he had obtained from Ian. He pulled over a small bolt and began to levitate around in his hand. Everyone knows about the power level system. There are 8 levels in total. These levels are actually determined by how many mutant cells you are able to activate in your body and not actually determined by strength. But if the power levels don't actually determine strength, then why the test when we started school? Quinn asked. The test the military gives you is actually to put you into the subcategories they created, the 1.1, 1.2, etc. This can sometimes be determined by what skills you have as well. Quinn was suddenly confused because he was sure he had seen the number 5 on it before. These watches are the answer. The watches they put on us are able to determine the number of mutant cells in our body. And now that brings me to your book, Vorden said as he pointed towards it. Not everyone can activate a high number of cells. It might take a while before we can tell if you have the ability to learn it or not." It sounded harsh, but what Vorden was saying was true. He had heard examples of rich CEOs who had bought their kids high-level ability books, only to be disappointed when they weren't able to succeed. The higher the ability book, the more information it would reveal about the method used. It was the fact that your soul weapon also had something to do with the number of mutated cells in your body as well. This would determine how strong of a soul weapon you had. The example Vorden gave was Momo. Although Momo's ability wasn't too strong in a fight, his soul weapon was incredibly powerful as a level 6 ability user. Vorden had explained that learning a level 6 ability book of the Bat would take months to learn, but while here, they could get a head start. But Quinn thought differently. There was one thing Vorden didn't know, and it was that his vampire abilities also worked like a system. "Would you like to learn the level 6 shadow ability?" "Yes." The book then lifted into the air, and the pages started turning and flashing in front of him. Vorden stood on the sideline and took a step back. He had never seen anything like this happen before. Once all of the pages of the book had been flipped, it disappeared and vanished into thin air. Vorden immediately rushed over to Quinn, who was holding his head with his hand. "What happened? Are you okay?" Vorden asked. "Yeah, I'm fine." "Congratulations! You have learned the level 6 shadow ability. You have now unlocked the Shadow Skills tab. You have unlocked the Mutant Cell stat. 10 skill points have been added. New Shadow Skill Dimensional Storage has been activated. New Skill Shadow Control Level 1 has been added." The ability book had vanished once again, just like the old book he had received. This time he had also been given an entirely new tab that was dedicated only to his shadow ability in the system. "Hey Quinn, what's wrong? Did something happen? Where's the book?" Vorden asked. Quinn then went to tap his head a couple of times with his finger. "Inside?" said Vorden. "What do you mean it's inside your head?" Quinn nodded. Vorden was surprised, but at the same time, not. He had learned so many crazy things today, and this one was probably one of the least shocking. Vorden didn't ask too many questions, and gave Quinn a few moments to sit down and rest. He didn't really understand what he meant by it was all inside his head. Of course, this was Quinn's way of getting around telling Vorden it was a system. Status: Race: Vampire. Ability: Shadow. HP 55 of 55. MC 100 of 100. Strength 15. Stamina 15. Agility 15. Charm 5. System, can you explain the MC stat to me? The MC stat is how many mutant cells you currently have in your body. Every time you use your ability, the MC numbers will go down, but worry not, for it will auto-regenerate itself over time. With that said, Quinn decided to put his stat points into strength and agility, as he had been doing so far. Strength 16. Agility 16. While Vorden was still giving him space and walking around the room, it also gave Quinn the time to check out a few of the other things he had unlocked earlier. To the side of the screen, it showed his inventory, where he had 16 basic tier crystals, 1 intermediate crystal, and also an advanced tier crystal as well. He didn't know when he had obtained them, but at some point he must have done. Was it while I was a bloodsucker? But Quinn couldn't remember killing anything other than Ian. It was the only explanation. When he had murdered Ian, did all his crystals transfer over into his system? The section to the right allowed him to select the item. He first chose the Rataclaw crystals. The shop auto-sorted itself and gave a message in the center. No items can be made with these crystals. Then, when selecting the other 2 crystals, items had appeared up in the center this time. Although these items were still grayed out, Quinn now knew the reason why. 3 intermediate crystals required to create this item. After searching through the shop more, he realized there were some weapons and items that only needed a number of crystals. When selecting the advanced tier crystal, the shop auto-sorted itself once again, and a ring was shown on screen. 1 of 10 advanced tier Deathbat crystals. Effects: allows the user to walk in the sun for 3 hours without being affected by the sun. This was a fantastic discovery. While Quinn was planning to create an outfit that completely blocked out the sun, there was a ring in the shop that had the same effect. The only problem was, it required him to kill 10 of these Deathbat, which were advanced tier beasts. Then there was a second problem. Beasts, especially on the higher tiers, were quite specific to what planet they lived on. Then a question hit Quinn's mind. Crystals could only be turned into one type of item, which all had the same effect. The quality of the item created would depend on the crafter, but if the item was destined to be a ring, a sword was unable to be crafted from the same type of crystal. Did Ian know what item the Deathbat crystal would give him? And if so, why would Ian need such a thing? Dimensional storage. This skill will allow the user to store items into its shadow storage. As long as there is a shadow nearby, you can take out and put in items as you wish. This includes your very own shadow underneath your feet. If only I had this skill sooner, Quinn thought. While Quinn's system allowed him to store crystals and specific ability books inside, it did not allow him to store anything else, so the dimensional storage was a great skill to have. Shadow Control Level 1 allows the user to control their own shadow. The description was short and didn't really reveal much. Even if he could control his own shadow, what use was that? Quinn then looked at the skills tab again. At the moment, he was able to see 10 skills in total, while the rest were covered. Next to each skill was a number. Shadowcloak Level 1, 10 skill points to unlock. There were multiple skills, but the Shadowcloak was the only one that he was able to unlock right now. His excitement got the better of him, and as long as he could unlock the other skills later on, what was there to worry about? You have successfully unlocked Shadowcloak Level 1. This skill allows you to use your own shadow to surround you into the darkness. Your opponents will struggle to see you depending on their level of perception, best used in the shadow or at night. It wasn't exactly what he was expecting, but it seemed like it was a type of invisibility cloak, one that would work well on beasts that were weak but not those of a higher level. Quinn then stood up from the ground and was ready to test out his skills. He could see that Vorden was still walking around the stadium, seeing if he could find anything. It was hard for Vorden to see due to the lights being broken, and he didn't have the same type of vision as Quinn. That meant the whole room was dark. Perfect. Shadowcloak activated. -1 MC for every 10 seconds of use. His own shadow below started to lift up from the ground and slowly crept up his body, from his toes to his knees, all the way to the top strands of hair on his head. As Quinn walked around the arena, he could see that his MC stat was like a bar. While using the skill, it was slowly going down. Vorden immediately jumped back and attracted a chair into his hand. Vorden went to repel the chair, throwing it in Quinn's direction. "Hey, wait, it's just me," Quinn said, as he deactivated his skill and could be seen ducked down. "What the hell, Quinn? You almost gave me a heart attack. Do you not remember just seconds ago I was fighting to the death against you?" Vorden complained. "I've been on high alert since." "Sorry," Quinn said, as he let out a little nervous laugh. "But man, you already know how to use the shadow ability already? And that seemed like a skill?" Vorden asked, amazed. "Like I said, when I read that book, it seems like all the information was inserted into my head. All I have to do is think about it, and I can do it." Vorden then walked over towards Quinn and took out his hand. "Do you mind this time?" Vorden asked. "Sure, go ahead." "An ability has been detected. Ability has been blocked." "What's the meaning of this?" Quinn asked inside his head to the AI system. "The system will try its best to do whatever it can to help the user. It will tell you when abilities are being used on you and all sorts." "Can I temporarily cancel the feature?" Quinn asked. "It's not really a feature. It's just informing you of what your vampire body is naturally doing. Besides, even if the boy could copy your ability, he wouldn't be able to use it." "What do you mean?" "That skill book you used is specific for vampire cells. This is the reason why he can't copy it. Your body structures are completely different. But you could always turn him into a blooded one. Would you like to activate the blood skill ritual?" "Yes? No?" Quinn was wondering what the blood ritual was. After all, there wasn't much information revealed about it. But now that the system was offering for Vorden to become a blooded one, it all became clear to him. It was a ritual that would allow Vorden to turn into some type of vampire. In the end, though, Quinn decided it wasn't his decision to make. "Hey, Vorden, if you had the option, or let's say I could turn you into a vampire, would you?" Quinn asked. "I don't want to hurt your feelings or anything like that, but the answer would be no," Vorden replied. "Being weak for most of the day, sure, it's fine while we're on a planet like this, but besides, what would happen to my ability?" "Yeah, sorry, Vorden, it probably would get rid of your ability," Quinn said. "I just thought I would ask. You might have been one of those types obsessed with vampires." The two of them then started to head down the stadium floor, an area that was designed for combat. They had been looking around the room for an hour now, and it seemed like they were unable to find a place where the portal could be. They needed to make a decision, whether or not to leave the training center and head outside to look for another place. But before deciding any of that, Quinn wanted to get the hang of his new skills. Vorden was also interested and thought he might be able to help, since he had experience with using elemental abilities before. The two continued to do more tests with the dimensional storage. Quinn found out that not only his shadow could be used to gain access to things, but also Vorden's shadow or any shadow cast by the wall and buildings. Shadow control level 1 active. Then inside Quinn's mind, something had clicked. He felt like he had a new set of arms he could control. The shadow underneath his legs was alive and could freely move about. He lifted the shadow, and it was like a dark moving mist that continually surrounded him. I guess the skill is limited to just the shadow around you for now. It's like a level 1 Earth ability, said Vorden. I wonder why it needs so many mutant cells to activate and is considered a level 6. Using the shadow around him, Quinn was able to extend it out and lift the small piece of metal that he pulled from his dimension earlier. It was like controlling another person. Well, now that you got the hang of it, you want to spar a little? Vorden asked. Now the two of them stood opposite each other, ready to have a friendly fight. Vorden this time had a couple of metal balls hovering around him, instead of spikes. Be careful, Quinn. Although these might not be like the spikes, they can still do a lot of damage. It's all right, Vorden. My body can handle it. Not using his full strength, Vorden repelled the ball at a decent speed, heading towards Quinn. The ball left the shadow wall and slammed right into Quinn's stomach, falling to the ground. Ah! Quinn shouted as he tried to breathe in some air. Well, I wasn't expecting that, Vorden said. Try again, Quinn groaned. Let's see how physical attacks work, Vorden said as he moved forward and swung a long metal pipe he had in his hand. Vorden continued to attack with the metal pipe, and Quinn continued to block, moving the shadow in the areas where Vorden was attacking. That's when he realized something. Every time Quinn would hit his shadow, his MC points would go down by a chunk. Then when Vorden was about to attack one more time, Wait! Stop, Vorden! Quinn shouted. His shadow had vanished, and he had run out of MC points. The shadow acted as a type of shield. It wasn't solid enough to block attacks, but would be able to slow them down. Well, I can see why your ability is a level 6 now, Vorden said. I think it's more to do with how freely you can use the shadow, and my example would be the skills. Quinn was happy with the results of the shadow ability, and hearing Vorden talk about made him feel even more confident. With the spar over, the two of them decided that once Quinn was fully rested and his MT points were back, they would exit out of the training center and go exploring again. After all, if they did nothing, they would soon start to starve, and Vorden didn't want another instance where Quinn got too hungry. Suddenly, 4 people appeared holding hands together on the street. As soon as they saw where they were, they immediately let go. Is everyone here? Faye asked as she did a head count. The homeroom teacher Dell was here, although he was still wearing clothing like he was ready to teach. Then there was the doctor, Haley. She was dressed more appropriately, with high-end beast gear all over. She didn't look like her usual self in her white robe, and looked almost intimidating. Then there was Leo. He was wearing light armor that fitted tightly to the skin, similar to Faye. Both of their abilities focused on speed, so it was important not to wear something too heavy. All right, our goal is to find the children, Faye said. The rescue team had arrived. On Dell's back was a fairly large rucksack that looked quite heavy. As he walked with the group, his footsteps stomped the ground and his back was arched. Why do I have to carry this thing? Dell complained. Right now you're the weakest of us 4, right? Faye replied. So if you want us to protect you, it's best that you carry the portable teleporter. Fine, I understand that, but why even the need to bring the portable teleporter in the first place? Isn't the teleporter fine on this end? Dell asked. It's back up, Leo said. Look around you and look at this shelter. It was basically the size of a city. Don't you think they had people protecting it as strong as us? I don't want to stay on this planet for long, and I don't want to find out what destroyed this shelter. Leo walked up front and using his ability allowed him to see an aura around things. A beast's aura was always red, while humans' yellow. It also allowed him to see the aura through most objects, such as building walls and so on, allowing them to avoid any confrontation with beasts. As they continued to walk, Haley had a question on her mind. I've always wondered, which of you two are stronger? Haley asked. The two up front suddenly froze, and Dell looked at Haley like she had no sense of personal questions. Hey, you can't just ask something like that, Dell whispered. It's okay, Faye said. I can easily answer for you. It's Leo. I don't know if you two know this, but we had to practically beg him to join our ranks after the first war. Back then, he was only a private, but he had made so many accomplishments. It was unbelievable. Leo didn't say anything after that, in fact. He never spoke much in the first place. Finally, the group had arrived just outside the training center.
We'll make sure the portal is safe first, and then after we will go out looking for the kids, Faye said. The entrance looks clear, said Leo. They walked onward and eventually saw the dead Rataclaws just outside of the entrance. What happened here? Haley asked. Do you think it was the kids? I think you mean kid, Dell added. Only one of them has an ability, remember? Ah, Vorden is the original, correct. His ability is to copy that of others. Although we don't really know how it works, it could be possible. If he copied a strong ability, then I could see him being able to kill these rats, said Faye. Well, if we find Vorden, we can go home, right? Dell asked. Are you suggesting we leave and not bother looking for the other one? Leo asked. The mission stated to only find Vorden. Anyone else is considered a bonus. Would you risk your lives for one student? When I joined that war, what do you think I was doing? Leo asked. I was risking my life for the sake of everyone. Enough, you two, Faye snapped. Technically, Dell is correct, but I see you are passionate about this. We will scout the nearby area using your ability. If we find nothing, then we leave. Fair? Leo didn't say much and started to walk up to the door. He drew out his katana blade and readied himself. Isn't that door made out of glathrium? It's one of the hardest materials we know of. It's why this training center remained unharmed in the first place, Dell said, chuckling at the idiotic attempt Leo was about to make. I'm assuming you wanted to know why Leo is stronger than I am? Faye asked. Leo slashed the door with one swing. No sound was made, and it seemed like the door wasn't even touched. Then, a few seconds later, a vertical slash was seen in the door, and the top half fell backwards onto the floor. That's why, said Faye. After entering through the glathrium door, they continued to walk in the hallway, which was covered in darkness. Dell couldn't get out of his head how easily Leo was able to break the door. It wasn't like Dell was a student. He was a professor, too. He had participated in the war back then as well, and never saw anything like what he saw today. However, it was clear to Dell that what Leo was using was at least a top-level beast-tier weapon. They had entered the reception area, where several doorways were leading to different sections of the training center. Wait, stop, Haley said to Leo and Faye up front. She bent down and studied the ground. Can you see what this is? It's blood and leading that way, she said as she pointed to the living quarters. How can you tell which direction it's coming from the stadium as well? Dell asked. Well, the blood tail, you can see that it's heading in the direction, and there's a lot of it, almost as if someone was dragged this way. Come on, let's hurry. It could be one of the students, Faye said. They followed the trail until finally it led them to the hallway with a broken door outside and a ripped-apart chair. Faye peeked her head into the room with the broken door and immediately turned away. Haley, I think you better take a look at this, Faye said. Haley took over and went inside the room, while Dell also took a look and turned his head away. Did you see the body? Dell said. Its body was ripped in half, guts spilling everywhere. Leo, who was standing next to him, turned his head and looked him in the eye. No, I didn't see anything. I haven't done so in a while now. Haley continued to examine the body. She went around the man's neck. Underneath his beast armor, she pulled out a colored dog tag. Again, 2 bite marks on the neck, just like the other students, Haley thought. Is there really a beast inside the academy somewhere? The same thing that killed this man? Or is it something else? Haley then stood up from the body and walked forward. Do you want the good news or bad news? She said. Just tell us everything, Faye replied. Well, the good news is it's not one of the students. Haley then pulled out the tag, which was attached to a chain, and dangled it in front of the others. The bad news is he was from one of the big 4 families. Each person's face dropped as soon as they heard the news. Which one? Faye asked. The tag says True Dream. Faye immediately slammed her fist against the wall as she heard those words. Why them out of all the families? The big 4 families were the ones who had the power to rival the military. However, the True Dream family was the most unique out of the 4. They had the closest connection with the military, enough even to have a seat at the council table. This was all because of the head of the family, who had the ability to steal others' abilities. If anyone ever tried to rebel against the army, then they would get a visit from the True Dream leader, and they could never use their ability again. We can leave him here for now, but it's best before we leave we bring his body and take it to the True Dream family. It's a pain, but they should be thankful we brought back one of their own, Faye said. After leaving the body be, they decided to follow the trail of blood back outside and into the stadium. And that's when they spotted the two kids lying down on the floor. "They're here! What luck!" Del said as he ran forward. Haley, Faye, and Del immediately went forward, while Leo was the only one who stayed back. For in the center of the arena, he could see a color of aura he had never seen before, one which was purple. Before the rescue team had arrived, Vorden and Quinn were both sitting down in the center of the arena. "Hey, I just noticed something," Vorden said as he pointed at Quinn's wrist. Quinn lifted his hand and looked at it, and even he was surprised by what he was seeing. The number on his wristwatch was still saying he was a level 1. "I thought you said it would change when I activated my MC points." "Well, that's what's supposed to happen." Vorden then placed his hand on his chin as he thought about it for a while. "Do you think it's because you're a vampire? Just like how I can't copy your shadow ability, the watch might not be able to measure your type of MC in your body." Hearing this news, Quinn was actually a little upset. He was looking forward to being able to use his powers freely. As a level 6 user, people would no longer challenge him just as he walked around the school. But now if he showed he had shadow powers and the number on his wristwatch still indicated 1, they would be just as suspicious about him. "I think it's best if you hide your shadow ability for now," said Vorden. "You've already hidden your vampire abilities for this song. You can hide your shadow abilities, right?" Vorden could see Quinn was a little downhearted by the news he had given him. "Don't look so down," said Vorden. "If we find someone in the school that's good at technology, we can get them to tinker with the watch. Plus, look at the bright side. The military tournament is coming up, and it would be good if you hide your ability until then. Show everyone on the big stage. Besides, if you come back with a level 6 now, they would be more shocked about how you learnt it so fast, so it works in our favor." Hearing those words did cheer Quinn up a bit. Just then, the sergeants and professors had entered the room, and surprisingly, the first person who ran up to both of them was their homeroom teacher, Del. "I'm so glad you're both safe," he said with tears rolling down his face. Quinn and Vorden thought it was sweet and didn't realize the homeroom teacher cared about them so much. But the truth was, Del didn't care about either of them at all. He was filled with tears of joy that they wouldn't have to stay in this scary place any longer. Haley then came over to the two of them and did a general checkup to see if they were okay. "You look a little different from the last time I saw you," Haley said. "You remember me?" Quinn asked. "Of course I do. I remember you taking that girl to my office at that time." Not many people even remembered what Quinn looked like after seeing him the first time, which is why the other teachers had no reaction when seeing him, so he was quite surprised. "Boys your age do grow quick. You're looking like a man already," she said, smiling. She didn't know why, but as she was touching Quinn all over, she could feel his bulging muscles. "Looks like the charm effect is working," the system said. "It's a shame you didn't save up all your stats and pull all your points into the thing. She would have confessed to you right here and now." Suddenly she snapped out of it and took her hands away. After checking all their vitals were fine, she handed both of them a food pill. Although Quinn felt full, he decided to still take the pill regardless. However, as the pill went into Quinn's mouth and down his throat, he started coughing wildly. It was as if he was choking on the pill. "Is he choking?" Del asked. Quinn continued to cough with his hands placed on his knees until he threw up all across the floor. Faye, who was standing by his side, had a worried look on her face. "Haley, quick, check up on him. There's blood in his vomit." Quinn hadn't eaten anything in the last 2 days. If this was the case with anyone else, then they would be starving with hunger. However, it wasn't the case for Quinn. Before eating the pill, he felt completely full, and he could guess the reason why. Ian's blood. For some reason, as soon as he took that pill, it was like his body was rejecting it. Inedible substance consumed. Haley rushed over to check on Quinn once again and placed him on the floor. She checked everything she could and even started to use her healing ability on his stomach. "A healing ability has been detected. Unable to block ability. 55 of 55 HP. "Thank you. I feel much better," Quinn said. "Your hunger grows." "Did you find out what's wrong with the boy?" Faye asked. "Not yet," Haley replied, "but I would need to take him back to the doctor's office when I get back." "Blood bank used. 90 of 100 milliliters. You are no longer hungry." "Are we ready to head off now?" Leo said, staring in the direction of Quinn. "Is he looking at me? Can't be right, he is blind after all." "Now you two," Faye said, looking at Vorden and Quinn. When we head back, I want a detailed report of what happened. Although we have already heard the other side of the story, we would like to hear yours, so it matches up." "You mean you know someone pushed us into the portal?" Vorden asked. "Yes, the second year who was responsible came forward and admitted it. General Duke is dealing with his punishment as we speak." The group started to walk around the training center, with the kids in the center and Faye leading the front. Behind them was Leo, and now Quinn was sure of it. Leo was staring at him intently. Could Leo have discovered Quinn now had an ability? But if so, why wasn't he saying anything? "When we're back at the school, let's have a talk, just you and me. I promise I won't hurt you," he whispered. Finally, they had reached the reception room. At the desk, there was a computer with a passcode machine next to it. Faye input the code which allowed her to turn and log into the computer. After she typed away a few things, a large mechanical sound could be heard coming from the direction of the arena. The group returned from where they had just come, and this time when entering the stadium, rather than just the plain flooring on the arena floor, out from underneath, a large portal had been lifted and placed there. As the group walked closer to the portal, Quinn was beginning to hear his heart beat louder, and he wasn't the only one. "What's wrong, boy?" Leo said. "It's nothing," he replied. But it was a lie. After throwing up the food pill, it was clear to him that his body had changed after the last evolution. He could eat food, and now he couldn't. So what about other changes? Before, when walking into the sun, he would lose half his stats. What if this time he just burnt to ashes? The group stepped into the portal and exited out from the other end. As they opened their eyes, they could see they were in the training hall, the same one where Peter had pushed Quinn. "Vorden, you head back to class. There's some checks I still need to do on Quinn," Haley said. "Del, you're free to go, and Leo, you come with me. We will report this back to Nathan, telling him the mission is a success, and I'm guessing he will decide what to do with the true dream body." The students were currently in the middle of their classes. Layla was sitting in her seat, hitting her pen constantly on her table. She moved it up and down in the middle with her fingers. It was something she would do whenever she had something on her mind. As soon as classes were over and she entered the hallway, she could hear all the other students mumbling away. "Did you hear? Apparently the missing students are back." "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I saw Vorden walking back to the dorms, and Professor Dell was cheering out loudly in the hallway." "Vorden's back, but what about Quinn?" Layla thought. She immediately rushed over to the boys' dorm to see if the rumors she heard were true. She gathered her courage and knocked at the door. A few seconds later, and the last person she wanted to see had opened it. It was Vorden. "Look, let me just get to Chase. Where is Quinn?" Vorden smiled as soon as he saw who was at the door. "He's at the doctor's office." "Thank you," she said as she rushed off. "Wait!" Vorden shouted. As she turned around, she could still see a huge grin on his face. "You're not the only one that knows anymore," he said. "What do you mean?" Layla asked. Vorden then started to walk over to her slowly. The grin on his face was beginning to get creepier by the second. "I'm saying you're no longer special and not needed by him anymore, because I know." Layla turned and continued to run, and as she did, she had the final say. "I guess you're still a crazy boy." She ran and ran until eventually she had finally reached the doctor's office. "Quinn!" she said, surprised. For a moment she had to look him up and down a couple of times. His jawline, his clear skin, and just something about him was pulling her towards him. "What's going on?" she said. "Are you using some type of charm spell on me?" She had read enough vampire novels to know what was happening. Her mind was now running wild with thoughts. "Can you turn this thing off?" Quinn said in his head. "Of course, but I thought you would like this," the system replied. "Of course I do, but if it's like this, she won't really like me. It's just because of the system." "Charm stat deactivated." Suddenly, Layla no longer had the urge. "Are you okay? What happened?" she asked. While no one else was in the office, Quinn proceeded to tell Layla everything that happened in the portal world. "I'm sorry I wasn't there," she said. "I said I would help you, but I couldn't." "Hey, don't worry about it," Quinn replied. "I wasn't expecting anyone to jump in after me. That's practically suicide." "He did." Layla mumbled just quite enough, so Quinn couldn't understand what she said. For some reason, she felt like Vorden had one-upped her on the loyalty scale. "Just remember, if you need any blood, you can call me. You don't have to really be on Vorden.
she said, as she rushed out of the doctor's office. It was a nice feeling to have people worry about him. For the first time in his life, Quinn truly felt like he had friends. After Haley had given Quinn the all okay to leave the office, he finally returned to his dorm room. Inside, Vorden was playing busy on a handheld device. "Hey man, is everything all okay?" Vorden asked. "They didn't find out you were a—" He looked around the room before finishing the last words. "Vampire, did they?" "Yeah, everything was fine. She said she could find nothing wrong with me, and my blood levels were normal, so she sent me back." As the two of them were talking away, a beep sound was heard from the door, indicating that it had been unlocked. The door opened, and in came Peter. "Guys," Peter started to say with his eyes watering up. "Get out!" Vorden shouted as he pointed at the door. "What?" "I said get out!" Vorden shouted again. "If you don't get out, Peter, I don't know what I will do to you." "But this is my room as well," he cried. "I don't care. Ask them to change rooms, but you are not staying here." Peter then looked to Quinn for help, hoping he would say something, but Quinn just turned his head away as his body was shaking. Vorden then went to his desk and grabbed a book, chucking it toward Peter, hitting the wall and falling onto the ground. "The next one is going for your face if you don't leave," said Vorden. "Peter, please just go," Quinn said. When Quinn spoke those words, it finally hit him. There was no redemption for him. No matter what he said or did, or even why, they had made up their minds. He was no longer their friend. He opened the door and closed it behind him as he left. With nowhere to go and no one to rely on, he stayed in the dorm room hallway, curled up into a ball on the ground, and cried himself to sleep. The next day, when the two woke up in their beds, they could hear commotion going on outside. As they opened the door, they could see a group had gathered just outside their room, and they were all circling around him. "What happened to him? Look, the floors are wet underneath. Did he cry himself to sleep outside? I thought I could hear something last night." A boy from the group then knelt down and grabbed Peter by the hair, lifting his head off the ground and waking him up. "So, it was you that was waking me up in the middle of the night," the boy said. Before deciding to do anything, the boy looked at Peter's watch and noticed he was a level 1. The boy himself was only a level 2. So he took this chance to show everyone he wasn't at the bottom of the food chain. "If you're going to stay out here like a dog, then you need to learn to shut up," he said as he lifted his hand and slapped Peter across the face. Peter was already defeated at this point. He didn't care what happened to him. What were a few slaps? This pain was nothing. What was the point of fighting back? He would only get hurt more. The only people who had bothered to help him in the past, he had tried to kill them. This is what Peter wanted. He wanted to be punished for his actions. As the boy lifted his hand to slap Peter again, he felt something grab his wrist. Then, before the boy could even turn his head, he saw a fist right in front of his eyes. The punch was so powerful, the sound of his jaw cracking could be heard, and the boy immediately was knocked out and collapsed to the ground. As Peter looked up through his watery vision, he could see Quinn standing there with a look of anger on his face. "I didn't do that for you," he said. "If anyone was treating someone like a piece of like that, I would have done the same." Without even looking at Peter, Quinn walked off with Vorden and headed to the canteen. After breakfast, the group was to go to their homeroom class for the usual morning lesson, before heading to combat classes. Everyone sat in their usual seats, which meant that Vorden and Quinn were sat next to each other with Peter on the side. "They really did come back. I heard they got pushed into a portal by some second year. It's amazing they managed to survive." All of the students were talking about the two who had gone missing for a few days. It wasn't the talk around the school, but was talked about frequently in Dell's class, since the students belonged to their class. "Good morning, everyone. Now that everything's back to normal again, I am proud to announce that your first portal outing date has been confirmed and will now be moved to next week. So please prepare yourselves as best you can. Oh, and remember to practice with your teammates. The same teams that were registered before will be used for this outing." This meant that Peter would be on the same team as the others.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.